So the LoonCam season's over. We put a couple of cameras out in the spring, early spring, and generally by the middle of July, they've left the nests, and once they left the nest, there's not much we can do about it, so we take the cameras down. I have one of the cameras back here. We've got 3 of these, and so this is the camera itself. You might, it's the type you see on telephone poles, you know, on the highway. It's a security camera. It has about a 30x lens on it, so we can zoom in really far. It also rotates. It can go up and down and rotate, so we can follow the loons. And then we've got an infrared light here, which turns on at night, and the camera can pick up the infrared so we can see at night. A couple of the pictures tonight will be from the nighttime. And here's some magic, some switches and some other stuff. But then basically we hook an Ethernet cable to the camera, and we run it under the water to the land, and hook it up to a modem and off to the internet, and we broadcast on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, oh, there's a microphone. This one doesn't have a mic showing, but we have a microphone that we put in the nest, and you can literally hear the little chick pecking through the egg. Wow. You know, and we can hear we hear sounds that normally you wouldn't hear because the loons wouldn't let you that close to the nest, right? But with the microphone, they just don't know it's there. So tonight's presentation is mostly pictures and movies, because that's what we've been doing for the last 3 months. So I'm going to sort of narrate it, but in general, we're going to go through it quickly. There's about 25 minutes of the presentation is movies, and the rest is just pictures and so forth. Well, all right, do it the hard way. I have too much technology to win sometimes. All right.
Maybe the battery's dead.
Battery's dead, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a panorama of the 2 different LoonCams. What I did is I rotated the camera about 30 degrees at a shot, and then stitched all those pictures together so you can see basically, you know, here's the two nests. Beautiful areas. You know, we've got some really nice sunsets as the season went on. Very rural areas. We've got some mountains in the distance, so it's a very pretty area. And in fact, we found a lot of people listen to the camera at night just to get the pond sounds. We hit somebody, and everybody's been doing that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's sort of a bonus to the whole thing. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. So just a quick overview. We do stream 24/7 on YouTube. This is the 10th year, as Harry mentioned. We have a large chat community. And the chat community is very useful because they will put down timestamps when something happens. Oh, the loon got on the nest, or the egg got rolled, or whatever it is. So people can come in later and then go back in time, because you can rewind up to 12 hours and see what's been going on. And then we make a lot of library clips, and you're going to see a lot of them tonight. A couple of the ones tonight aren't published yet, but they'll eventually be published on the LPC's YouTube channel. So we've got hundreds of little video clips from over the years there. So we see the cycle of reproduction. That's how you preserve loons. You make more, right? And so we get to see the whole cycle, all the way from you know, they show up in the territory, they find each other again for the season. We have the mating and the eggs and the incubation and the hatching and then the leaving. So that whole cycle gets seen if nothing goes wrong. Sometimes it's wrong. We do see the challenges to the species. We see eagles show up. We see turtles show up. We had a couple of problems with the eggs this year. So, bottom line, we ended up with 6 eggs. We ended up with 2 chicks across three different nests. So, it's not like all the, everything doesn't go well all the time. We do sort of notice the personality of the birds. Over the years, we can sort of recognize, oh, there's we recognize that, oh, that male's come back again, or that female's come back again, or that's the really big bird. And sometimes they act funny, they'll poke at each other, or just the way they sit in the nest, or the way they get up on the nest. They all have a personality, and over the years we sort of humanize them, which, we're not biologists, so we can do that. We see other animals, we get lots of drama, sometimes we think, oh, that chick is lost, it's gone. And then 20 minutes later it comes back, and oh, there it is, okay. We lost a chick for 4 days this year, and we figured it was gone, and all of a sudden it came back. So you get those, the highs and the lows, or the lows and the highs. And then of course the goal is getting loon chicks, and we do have a couple, on LoonCam 1 and 2, we ended up with 1 chick, and we've got a couple of really good videos of that tonight. So stay till the end, because that's where all the videos are, right? The hatching is the last part of it all, right? So just a couple pictures to start off. Camera has a lot better resolution than we see here. So if you look at the TV on the back, it's a very high definition camera. You can zoom in, like I said, about 30x, and so we get very close to the loons. This was LoonCam 1. You see the red eye on that loon there. Okay, so just talk a little bit about LoonCam 1. We're going to tell the story of LoonCam 1, and then we'll tell the story of LoonCam 2. I'm a new drone flyer. I just got my license last year, so I had to make a movie. This was the day we set up the camera, so I took my drone up and did a little. So you can see this, just the surrounding area. I'll turn that up a little bit.
Good, nice music though.
Yeah.
What's the date of this? It's in, I
April.
think it's April, late April. Where you can see the anchors and right there, quick briefly, you can see the Ethernet cable going across the pond. And an eagle right at the end, just as an ominous. We didn't have any eagle problems this year. I mean, some years we've had big eagle problems. So, okay. Oh, we're just going to replay it. Me and PowerPoint have a strange relationship. So, for those of you that looked at it, again, this is a still picture from the drone. Camera and the nest are about 30 feet apart. And the chatters on the YouTube, they named a couple of the rocks. So this was Alcatraz, and that was Turtle Rock, and that's where birds would stay there, turtles would get there, and it was just a oh, go look at Alcatraz. There's a turtle over there. So it's just to give you a little bit of an idea. They're actually pretty small rocks, and they're pretty close to the nest. On the camera, it looks like they're really far away. It looks like they're really big, but they are. And this is the camera itself. We just put a big 4x4 post, pound it into the bottom of the pond, and brace it with a couple 2x4s, and then slap the camera like you saw right here onto it. And there's looking down through the nest towards the camera, just to show you how close it is. This is the first night that, in 429, so just to show you sort of what a typical night is in fast motion. We had a lot of geese problems this year. This was geese year for sure.
Goose year.
I call them gooses because they don't deserve the respect to be called geese.
Were they trying to take the nest site?
Oh, they did. They did. We'll show you that. They were a problem this year. But yeah, and especially in spring, it's nice because the water's clear. There's no lilies coming up yet. There's oh, yeah, it's going to repeat that. That's funny. Okay, so the geese were definitely there. They decided they owned the nest. This is the microphone right here, so they would peck at it, and I started to get worried that they were going to kill my microphone. And then I remember in early May, I think it was May 7th, 10th, early May, the northern lights were really big, remember? So, there's no loons alive. So I turned the camera on to the Northern Lights, and this just, you know, I mean, this isn't about loons, but it is really nice.
The loons were watching it.
Of course, this is sped up, right? But
I think it is about loons because that's where the loons live and that's what they see too.
yeah.
You know where that was, Bill?
This was from LoonCam 1.
Do you know where that is?
So we don't reveal where the locations are, because we don't want tourists showing up with the camera. But it's close. It's relatively close to here. But yeah, that came out real nice. Okay. So then the loons started showing up. You know, we had geese, and then we started having loons, and we're like, okay, you know, this is May 16th now. And one of the things they do every year for a little while, just like maybe 3 or 4 days, is they come and they start checking out the fishing area, and they swim underwater. And so we try to grab a lot of underwater footage and stitch it together, because everybody likes seeing them going underwater, right? Or they can turn on the dock. It's amazing. A lot of what you're not seeing is me trying to follow them with the camera, because they move way too fast for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, back to geese. So here we are, May 20th. And that's about when this pair normally takes up on their nest, because they usually, May is when they lay the eggs, and June, about the first of summer, is when they hatch. And so like, the geese were starting to look pretty nesty. And we already had, I think it was 2 or 3 locations in New Hampshire that geese had actually stolen the nest and laid eggs in it. And once the geese lay the eggs, they're protected, you can't mess with them, they own the nest for a month. And so, just to prevent that, came up, got some nesting material, and my niece happened to be visiting, and we went out and basically closed the door for them. Well, within an hour, the geese came by and went, what's going on here? And they were like, they looked like they were pretty mad, because I think they were about to nest, and we did see them swimming off around the corner and probably laid their eggs somewhere else. So I think we just got it in time. And then 2 days later, the loons showed up, and they're like, what's going on here? They looked a little disappointed. They weren't mad, they were just disappointed. And so within an hour, I was there, the movie opening up for business again. And now we're talking here the 19th of May. By the 23rd, they were starting to mate. And so, you know, we did it in time, and now the loons had sort of grabbed the nest for themselves. This is a duck, actually. The ducks thought that they might have the nest. And the loons said, well, maybe not.
Is that a wood duck?
That's a wood duck, yeah. Wood duck and some of its chicks. Hey, you.
That's great.
We also caught a goose coming back, and
Wow.
another
The
good
tongue.
expression. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, the loons can take a long time to take off. Geese can be in the air from like almost immediately. And then, so by April 30th, we were seeing the loons a lot more. They were really starting to hang around and mating now and then. This one is I just like this clip, because the loon swam by the camera, pretty close to the camera, and I was following it. And the camera makes a little bit of noise when you move the gimbal. And so the loon gave me a sort of a weird expression. I was like, oh well. This went on. So by the end of May, they were starting to share the nest and get to know each other a bit. And the mating began. We were observing the mating about several times a day. This went on for several weeks. Now, what we learned during this period was that the female isn't the female from last year, or even from 2 years ago. So this particular nest did not, they didn't use the nest last year because there was 5 loons in the area, and they were competing for territory. And so they're just, the wars, the battles were going on, and they never ended up nesting. And so we're like, okay, you know, it's great to see the 2 back again this year. Well, it turns out that the female was a new female. And so this was, you know, we didn't know what her normal nesting period was. Like already she's late because she should have normally nested around in May. And here it is June already, June 15th. So she's almost a month late. And we just didn't know. You know, we think it might have been her first year because she wasn't banded at all. Normally when they have chicks, they get banded. And so then we know who it is. So anyway, that led to eggs.
I know.
And my wife says, don't show that very long because it's gross. But you should have seen the movie. And so they had their eggs and they started incubating. Weirdly, this brand new female was not incubating. She wasn't doing her job. And so she was leaving the nest open at night, which is not good. You know, the eggs are supposed to be incubating pretty much all the time. So this was just a day after the eggs showed up. We had an intruder. Now we don't know if this is the original female from 2 years ago or not, but the loon shows up. You can see the loon sort of in a guarded position here. And then, what's the female? So, like I said, incubation wasn't consistent, and pretty much every night the female would be doing the nesting and then would leave around sunset. And it became almost a joke with the chatters. Oh, when's she gonna leave tonight? You know? It was pretty much every night, which is unfortunate. But normally in the evening when the sun was setting, I would turn the camera towards the sunset because, you know, why not? It was a beautiful scene. And there's the nest. It would pretty much stay empty all night. Not every night, you know, some nights she'd be there, but mostly not, which is unfortunate.
So where was the dad? Wasn't the male?
He'd be doing it during the day,
turns?
you know, and then she'd take over around maybe 5, and by, you know, she'd incubate for 3 hours, and normally her shift was all night.
Yeah.
And it got to be dark, and she's like, you know, I'm off to the bar or whatever Lou's doing.
Not the night shift anymore.
And so, yeah, so the 8 was left uncovered. Now, this was one of those moments that you see a little fish there, and I'm going to show you a little movie of how that fish got there. But, you know, this just shows that having the camera run 24/7 and having the chatter say, hey, there was a fish that jumped up. I wouldn't have caught this, right? And I wasn't even watching the camera at the time. But because I can go back, I have an archive, I can go back and make movies of these things. So here we go. Here's the fish jumping up after
Wow.
It was going after like a dragonfly. You know, it was jumping out of the water and just happened to be a nest of its So then for a few weeks, the actions were pretty routine. The eggs would be turned and they would switch a couple times a day. Everything seemed to be normal. We're like, well, maybe that incubation is okay, because one of the basic tenets of loon watching is trust the loons. You know, never try to put, you know, never try to outjudge them, because there's usually some reason that they're doing what they're doing.
It was hot, maybe they didn't need to.
Maybe it was hot, right?
Yeah.
The other thing we found was that the loon was very tolerant. Here's our wood duck back. And for, I don't know, 4 or 5 nights in a row, the wood duck brought its little chicks there, and it was hung out most of the night, and the loon didn't seem to care, this is unusual. So we haven't seen that before. We've seen them chase them off, but we haven't seen them
Coexist.
So, you know, as the time went on, the lily pads started growing, and this is the morning of the 26th, everything seemed normal. Then what happened was disaster struck. About 12 seconds in this video, you can hear the egg crushing. So what happens is the loon sits down on the egg and it crushes, and shortly after that, you can see egg yolk on the loon's belly. So you can close your eyes if you don't want to see that. But. You know, is that one?
Turning the other one, that's good.
So the incubation of the second egg continued as normal. And the nights were as normal, they just weren't there. Unattended most nights. On the morning of the 11th, July 11th, so we're getting close to when things should have hatched. One of the chatters, we had some from Europe, they were sort of taking the early shift. She was all around 4 o'clock in the morning. I think I heard the other one crack. And sure enough, here we are at 9:30. The loon is removing some embryo off the nest and putting it into the water, putting it in the nest. So that afternoon, I mean, there's no eggs left, right? So I called up the Loon Center here and got John Cooley, who's the lead biologist, and he and I went out to check the nest, just to see what was going on. And we found this is a picture of the nest from the boat. This is the part of the eggshell. This was some embryonic material that was left over. And what we found weird was that there was some mussel shells in there. And so what our theory was, we have 2 theories combined. One is that the egg was sitting on top of the mussel shell, and the loon sat down on that, and, you know, on a hard surface, and ended up cracking it. But at the same time, John has seen, you know, hundreds of eggs, and he thought that the egg was very thin. So
Yeah.
they saved those shells, and I don't know if that will get analyzed or not, but you know, that was a problem. And again, this being the female's, as far as we know, first year, you know, maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe this will be something that, you know, she won't be back next year. We don't know. But anyway, that was pretty sad. So that was over. That mess was done.
Bill, doesn't pollution make the eggshells thin?
There's a lot of things that can make eggshells thin. DDT was the, you know, the historical thing, but no, there shouldn't be any DDT anymore. So I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to analyze that. And I think, you know, the thing that's inexpensive to do is to measure the size of the eggshell. And just by knowing that versus a bunch of others, just know, is it normal or not? And, you know, I saw it. It was thinner than a chicken egg. It was very thin. And normally a loon shell is relatively thick. You know, maybe 10 pieces of paper thick. So it did, I mean, even, and I haven't seen that many, but it didn't seem right to me, and John felt that way too. So we had just a couple of before we leave LoonCam 1, a couple of the other species that we saw in the area. This is the great big heron. We always love to see the heron come by, let it, you know, he's fine if it's on the top of the nest. Sometimes the loon lets him stay there, sometimes not. We've also seen the heron off in the distance, and you know how they stalk. And then they'll zip down and get a fish, and then we like to watch them like get that huge fish down their gullet. It's always fun to watch. Wood ducks, there are a lot of wood ducks around. This is Alcatraz. So, there are wood ducks on Alcatraz. There's the turtles on Turtle Rock. That would be a turtle. And there's more wood ducks on that's Turtle Rock
It
as
was
well.
also a large one.
And then we had a juvenile eagle show up on Alcatraz. This was back on 519, so this was before the eggs were even laid. And so this was early, right? And but it's always the juvenile eagles are more of a threat because they, I don't know, they just seem to be more of a threat to the chicks. Times we've seen problems, it's often been juvenile. And then we had the big turtles, the snappers. Here we had 3 at once, sunning themselves. They always came out when it was a nice sunny day.
I love it.
One more wood duck.
Yeah,
Yeah, now.
Wow.
Yeah, Al showed up, stayed there for about a half hour. You know, again, the nest was often unattended at night, so you could have visitors stop by.
Was the egg at June 17th? Was that before or after
June
the-
17th, I think it was, or maybe it was the 20th, maybe it was a few days before. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forget. And this is the red-winged blackbird. The red-winged blackbird continuously flew between the camera post and the nest, and then back and forth, big raucous call. People that like to sleep at night to the sounds of the pond always complained about this.
Really?
And this is the camera on the last day. I took this picture the day I went to retrieve the camera and pull it. So vegetation just keeps growing up. And what we'll do with this nest is just pull it on the shore and let the vegetation grow because it helps keep the dirt in. And so by next spring it'll be dead and down to dirt again. And what I like to do is, because the camera's going to be on this side, I'll go in there and sort of hoe out the front of the nest so it doesn't get too big for us. All right, so LoonCam 2 had a unique year as well. This camera went in on May 16th. Because that's again, normally the normal year, LoonCam 1 is finishing around the same time as LoonCam 2 is starting. But I think they're a little bit messed up on that front. So this is LoonCam 2 in my garage. So LoonCam 2 is a little more complicated. It's solar based, so we power it by solar and batteries, and then we use a radio antenna to beam it from the island to the mainland where the internet connection is. And we use about 300 feet of extension cord to connect the batteries, so the inverter batteries to the camera. So there's lots of parts. It takes about 8 hours to put it together. And there's me putting the solar panels up. We always remove them during the winter because we're not using them, no sense leaving them out.
We will remove
The
it
elements.
one of these days.
And there it sits. And when I installed it, there was it was empty. It was an empty nest. And that was, I forget what day it was. Literally one day later, there was a goose in there. And that goose this is the first snapshot. I mean, when the camera comes up, the first thing it does is it takes a snapshot and uploads it to a server. This is the first picture from the camera on the 16th.
This looks comfortable.
And that goose laid eggs between the time that I put the camera up and the time that the camera started working. Also, it decided that the camouflage that's on the side of the nest makes great nesting material. So, my respect for geese was lower this year. So here, we had a loon show up because it's getting near their time to use the nest. And here we have a goose hissing at a loon. The loon's coming from this side. Here it comes. So usually it's the other way around, but if the rule is whoever's got the eggs on the nest rules. So
Animal rules.
by June 1st, the goose had completely stripped the nest, and it was sitting on a pile here. Now, what I found funny is, you know, when a loon will leave the nest to go off eating or whatever, it just leaves and leaves the eggs in the bowl. The goose will fill the nest with material, typically that camouflage stuff, and then before it leaves, so it very meticulously covers the eggs before it leaves. And so that's why this sort of looks a lot more like a volcano than it does typical loon nest. They had 5 eggs on June 1st.
We had all 5 in one day.
No, I don't know. I don't know how.
Yeah.
They went
They
from
were there.
0 to 1 to 5 to here you can see a couple. And then that on the left side, that's we have a movie about that. The raft was never designed to be a goose nest, so it rolls off rather than have a lip on it. There's not a lot of space, and this is an area that gets a lot of boat weight, and so it's a rocking and rolling kind of nest. So this goose learned the hard way.
Oh, that's sad.
No, but
No, I thought it was sad. I thought it was good. Like,
so it had one egg left, and the egg was about 2 days from hatching. But weirdly, it left. It abandoned its last egg, and I don't know if it knew that it was inviolable or what, but it left. So that was the 7th of June, and by the 12th of June, we had loons there, and as you can see, the nest has been renovated. So we went out and sent out the maids, and we put new camouflage on the side. We put all sorts of dirt and moss in there because we knew that the loons were coming, and so they're back. And actually, this picture here, they had come back, but that's the one egg that's left from the goose.
oh,
So there was one egg, this is before they laid their egg. And so they were, they sort of like, okay, we want this, but we're not quite sure what's going to go on. Well, by June 12th, mating was in full swing, and the egg disappeared somehow.
oh.
So the egg's just gone. And on the 17th, the first egg arrived, the second egg arrived on the 19th. So now we're in business again. We've got 2 eggs, let's get going. There's the second egg arriving on the 19th. And this is the pair that we had last year that has 2 successful chicks, and so we're like, okay, this is great. Just everything was normal compared to the craziness of LoonCam 1. They were changing the duties pretty much equally. They were turning the eggs nicely. They weren't leaving them alone very much. Everything was like, this is great. So, what do we got here? Oh yeah, this is just a boring video of turning eggs. Yeah, that was one of those, right? Didn't squash it. So again, everything was good in this right picture. They're about to change. It's funny sometimes the mate will come up and ask. It's like, okay, it's time for a change, and the one sitting on the nest like, nah, come back later. This gets into that personality. That different loons they love sitting on the nest, or they hate it. As soon as the other one gets close, they'll jump off and swim out to the other loon and say, yeah, it's your turn. Go get in there. We did have a moment of concern when an eagle appeared. We've got a clip of this. This is a bit long of a clip, and it has some really good eagle shots on it. First, the loon gets freaked and leaves, and here comes the eagle in.
eagles take an egg or are they waiting for chicks?
You know, they'll wait for the chicks. I've seen them spend a half hour trying to get an egg without success. It's also rare to see them in the muck like that, you know, stepping on a log and. He's there for about a half hour. But this is just sort of excerpts of the time there. The loon was just going nuts the whole time. And we're at, we're in July now, we're in July 11th, so this is, getting close to the hatch, and so we are sort of concerned about this.
What's the chatter at this point?
Well, it's pretty heavy, right?
Yeah.
Chad love to worry,
Yeah.
so we gave him the worry that day.
Yeah.
He flew up into the trees, which was sort of crazy. So anyway. Oh, then here's the bear story. So we expect the eggs to hatch on Monday. So the first egg to hatch on Monday. Saturday night, 9:15, just getting dark, camera goes dark. Just dead, right? I'm not going out at 9:15. There's mosquitoes out there. I don't, I'm just not doing it. So Sunday morning I get up early and I go to see, okay, what's going on here. And I checked the solar panel and that wasn't the problems. And so I started following the extension cord. And I got to where the second and third cord joined together. And I had draped it over a tree so it wouldn't get wet, if it was a lot of water. Well, right underneath that, it turned out it was a blueberry bush. Right underneath the blueberry bush was a lot of blueberry bear scat. So the bear had basically stepped on my cord and pulled it apart. I had it in a waterproof container and it pulled it apart. So next year, there'll be tie wraps involved. But so the bear wasn't there when I got there. So I basically just plugged it in and started working again. But now this is Sunday, one day away from the hatch, and this is pretty typical. Murphy shows up right around the time of hatch. During the incubation period, who cares, right? We lose a little time. I go fix it. But this is starting to get a little bit nerve-wracking. So this is the pip. Everybody looks for the pip, and the pip is this little. The loon is starting to, the chick is starting to peck its way through the egg. And so this is the famous thing with the chatters are all trying to figure out, is there a pip, is there a pip? And we take snapshots and blow it up. And, hopefully the loon steps up and lets us see that egg so we can tell if it's pipping or not. So that's definitely a pip, we know that. In fact, here's the loon gets off the nest, not sure why. This is not that video. Okay. Here, the next one is the one I was thinking of. Now this is sped up. This is over a period of about 20 minutes. So I sped it up. I think this is sped up 100 times. It's a very slow process, and it takes them forever. It takes them 12 hours to get outside of that egg.
Is that the beak?
That's the beak, yeah. And then something concerned the loon. We don't know what, but the loon ended up getting off the nest. And this is some footage that we haven't seen before. You can actually see the membrane. And again, I sped this up because it's a long time elapsed. But you can see the chick trying to get through that membrane. And this is around 11 o'clock. The chick actually hatched around 11:30. So this has been a half hour of the chick actually coming out.
Is that membrane very thick and
I don't know. I don't know. And then he rolls the chick. Oh, we got chicks. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so this is now about 2.5 hours after the chick actually hatched. This was sort of a slow chick. This one didn't, we see some that come out and within just a few hours they're like jumping for the water and it's all the loon can do to keep it from staying in the nest. This one was the opposite. It didn't want it. It's sort of like its parent. You have a couple pictures.
But he's doing good, right?
He's doing good now.
Yeah.
He's staying under the.
Or she, whatever. Right.
But it's glad to be outside of that egg. And so this, let's see more pictures there.
It's cute.
All right, so this is the first swim. So now this is 8:30 at night, hatched at 11:30 in the morning. It's a little late for the first swim. And the loon wants it to, right? The loon's off to the nest saying, come on out. No. I don't think his feet are on it. Let me just rock the boat. That's the shortest
I know.
swim I've ever seen. That was it for the night. So the next day, this is what, 5:15 in the morning. This is what Harry's talking about. LoonCam operator doesn't get much sleep during hatch season. I do fine during the incubation, I don't care. But hatches, they get up with the sun. The sun in July gets up awful early. So this is the second swim.
Oh.
So fast.
Is that chick eating anything to that point?
Generally, by this time, it's eating straw from the nest. And then, once it gets another day older or so, they start feeding it fish, little nest.
Look, I can turn right, I can turn left.
You bought it on the court, huh?
What?
And then just some more pictures of, this infinite number of
Yeah.
amazing shots, right? You just gotta watch them all day.
So tiny.
In those early days, how far does it travel from the nest? Like how far
Well,
does
the first couple times not too far, and this chick was a little slower than normal, because normally by the second swim, it's riding on the back of the mother, and this one couldn't climb up yet. We'd seen it try on the nest, and it wasn't able to climb up, so it just didn't have the strength, but it really got it by the next day. Now here's where it got some strength. So this is the third swim. Actually, this is probably after a couple swims that I don't have videos of. It's been about 24 hours since the hatch. He tries a little thing in that.
I didn't either.
The nest is supposed to have protection up the side. This nest just needs some renovation. We'll fix it before next year.
So now what are the chatters saying? Getting on a plane, right? There we go.
Forget it, I'm not going out there.
Looks bigger, doesn't it? I don't know what they're doing.
Are they feeding the chickens?
No, no, this is about a day, so, actually, maybe, we're about at that point, about that point.
Just math.
You know, does one egg often, hatch well ahead of the other, or how common or rare is it for?
Well, so what we see is it's about 60 hours between eggs being hatched or laid, and the loons will incubate the first egg before the second egg has been laid. And that lets the two eggs be hatched close to each other. The best scenario is when they're hatching in 12 to 24 hours before. If you get more than that, it's sibling rivalry. And we've seen that, be a problem.
Huh.
There's something wrong, right? Sorry about that. There's something wrong with me. Or those round is that. Oh, right.
That call, you're gonna get that again. Once. You really want to, it's still So we're at the 24-hour point, and the other eggs are hatched by this point. And so now the sort of dilemma is the egg going to hatch? And because the chick is now getting strong enough that it's able to go out on its own, or leave the nest for good, doesn't need the nest. So it's, we've seen chicks leave the nest the same day they're hatched, and we've seen them leave 3 days after they're hatched. So again, it depends on the situation. But there it is right in the back. I finally figured out how to do that. But unfortunately, the egg was still back there, sitting in the moon. I just took some of these pictures that I thought were really nice. So, every time the loons leave the nest with the chick, good, they have sort of a call. And you sort of heard it that last time, we're going to show here. What we're going to see here is the typical leave the nest. The problem is there's still an egg left. So there's sort of a dilemma at the moment. But this would be the two together, swim away with one or two chicks, and we're announcing it to the world that they've got their chicks and they're off the nest.
So where do they just stay in the water, or they have?
Yeah, they go to a brooding area for a while, and it's usually not near the nest. It's an area that has a lot of fish around.
Okay.
And so, on a normal they're leaving, time to shut the camera down, we're done, and so forth. But because we had an egg left over, they decided to come back. And so this is, so that was around noon, when we saw that last shot. This is around 7:30 at night. The chick is here, the loon is here, thinking about that egg, you know, is that egg gonna hatch or isn't it gonna hatch? And it ended up deciding it wasn't gonna hatch. So now you see the chick's like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And this was the, you know, that was the last time that the chick was in the nest. So it was a little confusing.
So do they just sleep floating
Yeah.
in the lake someplace?
Yeah. I don't know if they completely sleep. Loons have the ability to turn off half their brain. I wish I could do that. But because they always want to be alert, right? So they're sleeping with half their brain and then they switch that back and forth. So they're not a land bird at all. They don't like, you can see how it's tough for them if you can climb up on the nest. So they stay in the water pretty much the whole time. And we watched the chick for, you know, they stayed in the area for several days, and before they moved on to the brooding area. So the next day, some of the LPC biologists, Ashley and Jaden, took me out to do the nest exam. And here you see Ashley picking up the egg. You know, we know it's inviolable at this point. And you see she's wearing gloves because just not to contaminate it or let it contaminate her. And so there's a whole process. They don't let me do that stuff. It's something that only the biologists do. There's the picture of the nest on the back side. You can see it's sort of a nice bowl. You know, eggs aren't going to be rolling out of this one. This is a particular nest that needs a deep bowl because it's in a fairly high weight area. And the LPC got a new X-ray machine, and so this was, we took the egg back to the X-ray machine, and that's the digital tablet. So you hold this X-ray machine over top of the tablet, point it down, you know, click it, and you can see what's inside the egg. It also can X-ray loons, so if the loon is injured or if they want to see if there's lead inside, this becomes a nice tool. This is a new tool this year. They're still learning how to use it, but what we saw in the egg is that there was some development, but it wasn't complete. And so it should have been hatched within an hour or two, and it looked like it was maybe 3 out of 4 weeks old. So something had happened during that third year that you know, it wasn't a viable egg anymore. So the loon knew that, right? You had to trust the loons. They knew that there was nothing going on inside, couldn't feel any movement, couldn't hear anything. And so even though I kept going back to see, is that even a hatch or not? It sort of knew it was time to leave. So then, if you can stand on one more little nest. This was a private nest. One of my neighbors has a loon that nests there a lot, and so this is the nest from above, and we got a chick there. So 2 eggs, one hatched. The other egg, when we retrieved it and examined it, it turned out it hadn't even started to incubate. It was complete yolk, so it was infertile. And but we got one out of it. This is them swimming. Now this the male, which I think is probably the one behind the big one. Last year they had the same nest, but he didn't incubate. He was like the female of LoonCam 1. He would show up at the nest, sit around for 10-15 minutes, and then leave. And so that nothing happened last year. This year he was much better at that, but he's still a loon.
He's loony.
You gotta see that. This is crazy. This is the craziest thing I've seen.
Yeah.
Now we have no sound in this because the camera was in a pretty populated neighborhood, but he does not like that sound.
She's just like, what's he doing?
He's crazy.
This went on for 10 minutes. I'm not gonna show up 10 minutes, but, and then he's done it again. I mean, that wasn't the only time.
And then he lost the baby, right?
He gets the loon badge.
Oh,
And this is that same chick at 5 weeks.
Nice.
And I literally saw it today. It's still there. He's doing very well. There it is.
That's a great picture.
Close up. And there it is with the silver hairs.
And he's diving now, right?
He's diving.
Yeah. Or he's diving
So
deeper.
yeah, we're just gonna end up with a couple of just nice pictures that I took over the course of the period. And then this is a sunset from LoonCam 1.
A
Just to show you how
cyanide.
nice it is. And that's LoonCam season. So, any questions or, yeah? Cool.
Are the nests totally man-made, or do the loons contribute anything to the construction of the nest?
They move them around a bit, but the artificial nests are strictly made by LPC. They take the dirt and moss and everything else. That environment tends to survive year to year. You know, so it's sort of a biosystem that stays there. The loons might grab a few lily pads and bring them on board, but if they're building their own nest, a natural nest, they'll bring up muck and you know, they'll construct it over the course of about a week. And then over the last 12 hours before the egg comes, they have a frenzy that he's building the nest. So it's really fun to watch a natural nest, but the problem is we're sort of out of natural nest area. The ones that we have had cameras on aren't available to us anymore. You know, just to have a camera, we have to have somebody close enough that we can get an internet connection, and at the same time, not be very populated. Yeah.
How do you tell a male from a female?
The female's the one that lays the egg.
Good
The only way we really can tell is by the bands. You know, and once they've had a chicks, the biologists go out at night and they shine a light on them, and they protect their young, and they throw a net over them and grab them, and bring them in, put a band on them, take a feather, take a blood sample, and so now they're documented. And then the next year, we can see the bands on them when we know who it is, and so that way you can tell the male and female. But the bands are there. You know, anytime somebody tries to tell you they can tell, it's the males might be larger, but we've seen females be larger too. So it's not a consistent thing. Yeah.
So some of those initial clips from LoonCam 1, did they think a loon put that muscle in the nest? How did they get there?
We think it was maybe otters or you know, I don't know.
Did the
You know,
otters
because-
do that? Did you have the otter thing last Thursday, right?
Yeah.
They move the muscles around? Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know, but when we went out and examined the nest, there were actually 3 mussel shells in there. And so I don't know what we do about that, other than when we know it's about time for them to nest next year, just go out there and take them off. I usually end up cleaning up goose poop before. Anyway, I'm a janitor. we try to make it as nice as possible so that
They might like the goose poop, you don't know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it
Uh,
softer.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at their head, they don't even look like feathers. Are they very tiny feathers on their balloon tail?
You know, I don't know, Harry. You've probably been a lot closer than I have to.
Yeah, it's an entire coat of feathers, you know, and it ranges from those downy feathers that like give the insulation to that waterproof of the coat, and the feathers on the head and the neck are just like like velvet. It's beautiful. You have a chance to actually hold one. It's like soft and yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've always wondered about what you look at them. It does not.
Looks like a helmet, like a helmet. It does.
Sometimes the neck, they have those bars on the neck going around, and sometimes people think they can identify the loon because of the patterns on there. but then they'll preen, and the next day they come back and it's all different. It's all feathers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you get much trouble from the lake residents with the loon sanctuary areas, or are most people pretty cooperative?
Very good. I mean, we really haven't had problems. Because we have sound, we do have to be a little careful about, people local residents, but because we're early in the season, it's usually seasonal people that are there, or people that are, accepting with the microphone. So sometimes on Friday night we'll turn the mic off. But occasionally, like one picture I didn't include today, we had that third nest, we had a guy come by in a kayak, and the loon got really low and didn't flush. And the big problem when you get close to a nest, if you scare the loon off the nest, it's going to leave quickly, like you saw when the eagle came, and it can kick the egg off the nest. That's more common than it needs to be. So that's why it's best not to flush them at all. And we've seen cases where they were flushed and you come back for 12 hours and then those eggs didn't hatch. So, there's plenty of natural things that can scare a loon off a nest. So it's best if people don't become one of the actions. Anybody else? Oh, Karen, one more.
Yeah, your underwater shots were fantastic.
Yeah.
Swimming. And it seemed like there was a lot of reflection on the water, but yet you could still see them. Do you have some sort of filter on the camera?
Well, no, indeed, every year it happens for a couple of days, and so I sort of wait for it. And it's in the morning, so the sun is coming from the east, and I'm looking west, and there's usually a wedge that there isn't a reflection. And so I'm focusing the camera where I can see.
Yeah.
If I moved it a little bit to the right, the reflection would be bad. I've often thought about putting a Polaroid lens on there to see if I can get anything better, but it's not possible.
But your night shots look like during day.
Oh, the night, we have this infrared light that shines, and then, we can see really well at night.
So do you have exposure and aperture and ISOs all
Oh yeah,
automated?
There's a million levers on that thing, and
or are you manually?
well,
remotely?
I haven't messed with the camera for 9 years. I've sort of learned how to make it sing and dance.
Cool.
But the frame rate, so we track at 30 frames a second, but sometimes we go down to 5 frames a second if it's dark. We'll do like 1/100 of a second shots, and sometimes I'll go down to 1 second shots. Of course, if you do 1 second exposure, now you can do 1 frame a second, right? You can't do 10 frames a second at 1 second exposure. So there's that, there's color intensity, there's clarity, so there's a sharpness thing. One of the biggest limitations we have had up to now has been bandwidth. The camera can burn about 100 megabits per second, and I can only get about 35 out of spectrum. So now that Fidium's in town, and you can get 100 megabits per second, that's their lowest. So now next year, I'm looking forward to having the camera opened up a little bit. You have compression. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can play with to try to keep the picture as good as possible. Harry is the critic. The first couple of years that I was doing this stuff, Harry like break me to the TV like, well, look at this, and he would not stop until I got it right. So the cameras are, I mean, we've priced it out. The cameras cost about $2,000 a piece, and then you get everything else, all the stuff. It's about $3,000. If you don't do solar, it's about another $1,000 or so if you add the solar components to that. And we'd like to go to 4K. We're at 1080p high definition right now. We'd like to go to 4K, but the camera itself is $6,000 right now, and we have 2 cameras, and so that's not going to happen for a while unless we get a really nice benefactor. But I think that's, now that we have the bandwidth, now we can start looking at getting our resolution higher. I mean, this stuff here, this has been through a couple editors. It's been saved in an archive. It's not as, when you look back at the TV there, it's super crystal clear. So in live, the live camera is much more clear
Projector's way lower.
Yeah, the project, so we've lost a lot of resolution, but, it's already very clear, but if we could get higher resolution, lower compression, and, yeah. So,
Cool.
things to think about, yeah.
Did I hear you correctly that you said LoonCam 2 usually is starting up as LoonCam 1 is finishing?
That's been traditional,
But
but,
why is that?
well, it's because loons have their own schedule.
Right.
As Harry said, last year, one of the loons had a chicken in August.
So where you said that the nest activity just happened to be that the nest activity at Cam 1 was earlier
Well, it was
this
the new
season?
female. So if it had been the old female, it probably would have been on the same schedule. But the new female had a different
Oh,
schedule.
so were you just saying that this year LoonCam 2 started up after LoonCam 1 because of the female, not every? It sounded like you're scheduling it so that you have the
We do.
LoonCam 1.
We do.
Well, how do you know what the one's gonna do?
Once you have a pattern, they tend to keep that pattern.
If
So,
it's the same.
if it's the
LoonCam
same pair.
Which one of them
And
was.
so, I mean, again, we've been doing this for, this is the 10th year, and for the first couple of years, it was always the same pair. And so everything was down to within a day or two.
Oh, so those pairs were that regular that you knew
Yeah.
their locations.
Yeah,
So you were really talking about, you knew what those two loons were gonna do at each.
right, and all of a sudden they changed it up, right?
Sure.
We're gonna be different this year, and then the geese on LoonCam 2,
Nest
that was the
up,
same
yeah.
old pair, but the geese decided they were gonna take the nest over for a while, so, it just was a weird year.
It's always a weird year.
Yeah.
Do you have information on how many people are watching this year and from how many countries?
I don't have all the statistics, it was about 250,000 views, and we were low this year, we've hit 500,000, so we were low, and I think part of that's because LoonCam 1, we get about a 10x spike when the eggs are hatching.
Yeah.
And LoonCam 1 didn't hatch this year, so we lost that.
Yeah.
But we go between 250,000 and 500,000 views. Now, that's not people, that's somebody starts up the stream and that counts as a view.
We've got 2 dogs in my house watching it, so.
Yeah.
They're sitting there looking up at the screen.
One of our, we had some woman from Ireland, named Claire, that just felt it was her duty when she got up to watch that camera and put timestamps for us. So by the time we'd get up at 5 or 6 or whatever, there would be all these timestamps of anything happened overnight, we would know. And then, I go back and find it and make a video clip or whatever, that's how all these videos, I don't sit there and watch the camera all the time.
Yeah.
I'm dependent on those chatters to tell me what's going on. Yeah.
How do you watch it in real time? How do you get onto the Zoom site?
So the PC connects to the camera directly. The camera,
No,
No,
for
for
She
us.
wants to.
It's on
it's
YouTube.
on YouTube.
you just go to YouTube.
YouTube, or you go to the LPC's website,
LPC.com. Okay.
lpc.org.
Okay.
And-
Or-
Loon.org.
Okay.
Loon.org, yeah.
Loon
And
Center.
then
Okay.
/LoonCam,
Okay.
or there'll be.
There's a button on
You
the
can
first
find it.
page,
Okay.
yeah.
But it's either on YouTube directly. You can search for it on
Okay.
YouTube,
Okay.
or go to the
Yeah.
Loon.org.
Okay.
And there's
Loon
years
Center.
on there. It's
Yeah,
on
if you go to
years.
YouTube, you can find the clips.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, perfect.
And
Bill,
subscribe
maybe
to
I
that
can ask
YouTube.
this, maybe Harry.
Okay.
Now, these Loon Cams, have they paid for themselves with all the extra people watching, donating and stuff? Do you have a feel for that?
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
YouTube revenue?
we're pretty much, it's about $1,000 a year for us to run it.
Yeah.
And we had a period of time when we were buying cameras, we were buying solar equipment, we were buying 300-foot Ethernet cables. There was a lot of capital expense going on. Now it's pretty much repair and replacement. Like the dome lens that goes around the camera, that gets scratched, and it's $50. So I might throw $50 at it. The bandwidth, that's really come down over the last couple of years. We were spending $150 for a month for the bandwidth. Now we're paying $75 a month. And next year, because it's probably Spadium, we're probably going to jump on somebody's private line and not have any bandwidth costs. We had bought 2 cameras. You buy the camera, and then you have to buy the $100 cable and the $150 cable, and it's expensive. Well, one of our chatters knew somebody that works for Axis, which is the camera company. They're a European company, but they have their U.S. headquarters in Chelmsford, Mass. And he knew somebody there. And so we said, can you get us a discount? We need to buy some new cameras. they gave us 2.
Wow.
So there's $4,000 of donation,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so that really helped a lot.
Yeah.
And we have had the chatters run, one year, guy ran a contest to send him a guess of when the egg's gonna hatch and give a donation towards LoonCam. And we made about $1,300 that year. And so that, you know, I would say it does sort of pay for itself. You know, we do have some people that donate specifically for the LoonCam, but we're not in a position anymore that we have to beg for it. You know, it pretty much runs itself at this point. Until we get those $6,000 4K cameras, then we'll be saying, hey.
How did you choose the sites? Is it, you live at one of them, or do you have some
No, but I'm
house
close.
you
I mean,
needed
we
to get?
used to have a site that was about an hour away, and just technical difficulties, I was driving up there 3 or 4 times during the month, and I'm like, nah. So now, everything is within about a half hour. And,
Or do you just know someone you can hook up to the internet? Or-
yes, everybody is, you know,
You got about someone who lives there.
volunteers, people that like. And then I've spent a lot of my engineering efforts goes into making it more reliable. And anytime something breaks, I'm like, okay, that's not breaking next year. You know, like that bear, I'm gonna be, the Tyrax and garden hose over the microphone cable so the turtles don't eat my mic cable.
And you avoid blueberry bushes.
And blueberry bushes, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
When you're considering a $6,000 4K camera, or camcorder.
Yeah.
How does it work just technologically, that if you are getting this super high resolution image, but the people watching it have 1080,
Yeah.
do they see the 1080, or do they see
They'll see the 1080, and that's the beauty of YouTube. It's called transcoding. And so they'll take, even if I'm on a phone on dial-up or, you know, a really slow phone, they will bring it down to the resolution of your phone, and they will, you know, use lower bandwidth. So you give it to YouTube in the highest quality, and then they convert it into what anybody needs.
So I guess I have to kind of reverse this question. If you have a bunch of users who don't have access to 4K,
Yeah,
and I guess that's changing because it really is.
well, I don't have it, I mean, no.
So is it worth $6,000 at the time when it's not widespread enough that people could even see it? So, or is it so good that it just kind of enhances
No,
it?
I think that, personally, I think that the prices will come down on the cameras. You know, we're dealing in a first generation of 6K cameras. I'd like to see the second generation. And like you say, you know, not that many, I mean, some people have the 4K, but I mean, 8K is out now, right? 4K is old.
Well, one thing is that your archive will always be 4K, so if
Right.
there's great things from 2025 that you want to look at in 2030,
True.
Yeah.
they'll be in 4K.
True.
Most
Yeah.
modern phones and computers are 4K compatible. That's only really the TVs where it
Yeah.
comes to.
Okay, yeah, so it's worth what you're saying.
But, yeah, so, you know, I don't think this is the kind of thing we need to do next year. The cameras this is the 3rd year we've used them, and I think they're probably good for another 4 to 5 years. But you know, there comes a point where the cameras aren't supported anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, the new software doesn't, you know, bugs start showing up. What the old cameras were getting so bad that in fact, the Boulder Code camera, the third nest, that was using one of the older cameras. And when I use it, it's so slow, and the resolution isn't there, and I just feel handcuffed when I use it because it's so old. These will become that in, say, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think we'll say, you know, and by that, hopefully $6,000 will go down to 3 or 4, and maybe they'll donate us some more cameras, and we'll see what happens.
So
But, yeah.
you take a picture every,
So we have the YouTube stream, and then I take a picture every minute, so I have
and you keep all
I
those
have a
pictures.
terabyte of pictures from the.
And if it's 4K, they'll be bigger. So you
Yeah,
need more
every
storage.
picture I take is about a half a megabyte right now.
Yeah, so you have to figure
And
that
so
out.
that would be a couple
Storage
of-
is cheap.
It doesn't feel
It's
so.
expensive.
But when I was running 5 cameras this year, so these 2, the 3rd one, we did one on Kanasaka, and then I was helping some folks over in Maine. And all 5 were coming into my file server, and I've got over a terabyte that I saved from this season. And what I'll do is I'll put that on a disk drive and give that to the Loon people, researchers, that, you know, maybe someday somebody will use it. We've started to use AI already. I'm using AI now. I take the chat logs and I will throw that into AI and say summarize it, and then I'll post that on the
What are you using?
ChatGPT. And what we're hoping to do, we keep talking about it, but no one knows what to do. We'd like to be able to identify that. When you say, how do you identify a male from female? We'd like AI to be doing that, where we train it, say, this is the female, this is the male. And we want it to know how many, you know, when's the male in the nest, when's the female in the nest. So if I feed it these, you know, thousands and thousands of pictures, it's about 1,200 pictures a day. If I feed it all those pictures, I want AI to tell me what percentage of the time the male and the female are on the nest. Because what we know is that the male is on the nest more at the beginning of the incubation because the female is resting from all the eggs. And then near the end, the female spends more time on the nest, but typically it's the male that's on the nest when the egg hatches. So that's your typical thing. But if I could throw 5 nests a year at it and throw 5 years of information at an AI tool and train it, wow, you know, that's the kind of thing we'd love to do. But we need some like college student that wants a master's degree and something or other.
There's such a better opportunity to see the banding because of them getting out of the water.
Yeah,
That's helps so much.
yeah. So anyway, that's sort of the things we're talking about, but
Good, so,
yeah.